Well, gold has been finding its groove as we head into the end of the year. Since early October, the price of bullion has advanced close to 10%. It's outperforming the TSX in that time frame, with a weakening U.S. dollar helping to bring in buyers. The growing expectation that interest rates have peaked is part of that story. At the same time, we are still hearing about inflation challenges remaining, possibly over the long term. Even Costco shoppers making headlines. They seem to be seeking out an inflation hedge. The company recently said it sold more than $100 million worth of gold bars in its latest quarter. We had a conversation at the start of the year with the mining legend and Franco-Nevada Chairman Emeritus Pierre Lassonde, who was bullish on gold at the time. He joins us now with his outlook for the year ahead and more. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Ever do any gold bar buying at Costco?
No, I have not. I find that absolutely hilarious, but 100 million talks a lot loud, okay? What's interesting is that those gold bars are actually from South Africa.
There you go.
I would have thought they would have used like U.S., produced gold.
Yeah.
But no.
I'll have to ask the Costco executives about the strategy on the gold bars. But, there are a couple of dynamics at play. I mentioned that you were fairly upbeat coming into the year on the outlook for gold. Is the conversation in the market surrounding gold right now, would you say it sort of mirrors what we were talking about maybe at the start of the year as well?
The conversation in the market is, if you talk to portfolio managers, they're making so much money with all the high tech and all the bonds have done quite well in the last little while, that they're not still focused on gold whatsoever. But for me, when I look at it, I believe that the U.S. dollar has peaked. And gold is the anti-U.S. dollar. So that is one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on gold for 2024. And
so the dynamics there, I mentioned that you've got interest rates or a belief in the market that interest rates have peaked. And that works. That's one of the factors working against the U.S. dollar and maybe benefiting gold. But we've also talked in the past about how there are still some longer-term inflationary concerns. Can you explain to our audience why that dynamic could be good for gold at the same time that we're talking about interest rates coming down because the short-term inflation trend has been encouraging? How does that work?
Well, it's a parallel would be the stagflation of the 1970s when we had like very high inflation as well and no growth, okay? I think that what we're going to see in 24 is some growth, but it's not going to be in the 3-4% like we've seen over the past 2 years. And inflation is going to be really sticky, like around the 3% level. It's going to be higher than what they hope for. It's not going to be 7, 8, 10% though.
But your bullish thesis on gold is not based on inflation going away. It's based on the fact that there's only so far interest rates can climb if there's an uncertainty for the economy, and that keeps some of that sticky inflation around, and that possibly benefits gold over the long term?
It's all about the U.S. dollar. John, I mean, think of gold as the anti-U.S. dollar. And I look at 24, the U.S. government is going to have a $2 trillion deficit. Interest rates are going to come down because it's a presidential election year, okay? And what does the Fed do in an election year? They like to make it easy for the incumbent to win the election, okay? So interest rates are going to come down, but it's not going to happen in Europe. I think the euro is going to be, going up vis-a-vis the U.S. dollar. All of the other currencies will, and gold will be going up.
What's interesting is there's been a big appetite growing for Bitcoin. Everybody's talking about, ETFs in that market. A couple of years ago, there was this huge appetite for crypto. Some people started talking about that as sucking away some of the attention from the gold market. Based on what you're talking about, who knows? Maybe people will have interest in both gold and crypto. But does cryptocurrency momentum steal from the gold story that you're outlining here?
When you look at central banks, what are they buying? Are they buying crypto or are they buying gold? Last year they bought 1,200 tons of gold, okay? And why they're buying gold? Because they're diversifying out of the US dollars. They say, we don't really trust the dollars, we don't trust America. to let us exchange our money when we need it in the times of need, and they're buying gold. And I think that when the U.S. finally puts regulations around the crypto market will be very small compared to the gold market.
Now, when we spoke at the beginning of 2023, you also highlighted gold stocks as one of the ways investors can, have a foot in the game. You mentioned technology stocks having a big year, but there are a lot of gold stocks that actually had a very strong 2023 as well.
Not really, John. No, the gold stocks are still trading as if gold was $1,500 and not $2,000+ an ounce. So they're trading at 50% of their real value. So I look at 2024 as a catch-up year for like the vast majority of gold stocks. I think they're going to outperform any other equities in the market.
What do those companies have to do outside of just, if the price of gold continues to rally, maybe they benefit? Because we always have this conversation in the energy market about how there's value in energy stocks and that the companies in that industry have to keep finding ways to appease investors, shareholder-friendly stuff, that kind of stuff. If you had to sort of pick a theme to be watching for the gold companies themselves, between doing things that are shareholder-friendly or deal activity, I mean, what are the things you're going to be watching for in 2024?
I think there's going to be a lot more deal activities. We've seen already in 23 some like really big deal, like the Newmont merger.
Yep.
So I think that in 24, this is going to probably accelerate because it's cheaper right now to buy the ounces on Bay Street than it is to explore for them.
Now, beyond gold, obviously you're watching the story of copper very closely as well. Everybody is, the long-term story around copper. Last time you were on as well, we were talking about the future of Teck Resources. And I do want to get your outlook for what happens with copper, let's say, in 2024.
I'm very bullish on both copper and gold for 2024. I think that with the closure of Cerro Cobre Panama in Panama, which is a real tragedy, the copper market is going to be very tight. In fact, it'll be in a deficit for 24, which will support prices well above $4 a pound, in my view. With any kind of activity, it'll be over $4.50.
The CEO of First Quantum was on Bloomberg television today, and obviously it's been such an uncertain time, so much moving so quickly tied to their operations there. What happens with First Quantum? I mean, how do you deal with a situation like that?
You have to deal at the political level. And right now there's a huge vacuum in Panama at the political level. There's an election coming up in 4 months, and sort of like the current president is lame duck. And so is the legislature. So nothing's going to happen for 4 months.
But in the same way that we're covering these Red Sea attacks and people wonder what that means in terms of oil supply, what's happened with First Quantum in Panama impacts the copper supply story heading into next year.
Huge amount. Yeah. Huge amount. I mean, Cobre Panama is the 5th largest copper mine in the world. So imagine you shut that down. Like, you lay off 40,000 people. Like, this is the number of people that are unemployed because of that. And so it has a tremendous impact.